Greetings, and welcome to the Modern Alchemist channel. I'm Aubrey Forrest, the Modern Alchemist, and this is the M.A.P, the Modern Alchemist Podcast. Today on the M.A.P, I thought that it would be fun to discuss the Adam and Eve story by Chan Thomas, which was written in 1965 and then classified by the C.I.A. until June 24th of 2013, which it had been approved and sanitized and had gone through whatever the machine they pop it through, and it's come out. And now, interestingly enough, I've noticed that this document has surfaced and is a component of some thinking that I've encountered along the fringes in YouTube and other areas. Specifically, that this document has been embraced as a kind of proof by those who hold the Cataclysm paradigm, that the Earth goes through a series of perennial cataclysms that repeat, and that these cycles are pseudo-predictable. Like you can kind of gauge it based on how long of a period existed between previous cycles. Now, I embrace this paradigm because virtually every culture in the world that has a mythological structure discusses that there have been periods which differ dramatically from what we enjoy today, and that these periods always concluded with some kind of cataclysm, so that the people of Mesoamerica, they saw that there was a cataclysm of fire, which then ended the world, and then there was another cataclysm of water, which ended the world. And that these concepts of cataclysms of fire and then water, and then a promise that the cataclysms will abate and stop, and that everything will be fine from this point forward. These are core material for almost every origin story out there. And so the fact the C.I.A. took interest in this, fascinates a large number of people. The fact the C.I.A. released it back into the public fascinates me, if only because, I'm aware that this organization has worked its way successfully into every form of media, and that's one of its many mandates, and that this mandate has been going on for a considerable period of time, and I doubt it will ever discontinue. So a lot of times when I see material like this surface, it seems to be provocative and it elicits discussion. Well, guess what, folks? I'm not going to talk about the document in particular. I'm not going to talk about where their use of scripture came from, or the fact that it begins the universe at 4.6 billion years, and now we're thinking it's 13.8, and it could be older than that. It could be infinitely old. If the universe is cyclical like everything else, then, there's no way to determine its age. It can only be determined from one cataclysm to the other, right? So, as Ogra says in The Dark Crystal.
Now, ask what the Great Conjunction is. What's the Great Conjunction?
What's the Great Conjunction? You tell me.
The Great Conjunction is the end of the world! Or the beginning? End, begin, all the same. Big change. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. Ah, there it is.
When she's talking to Jen, she says, end or beginning, it's all the same. And it really is. So, the elephant in the room, then, there's actually two of them, would be twofold. One, that a discussion of the prevailing orthodoxy and paradigm needs to be had. And then the second is the realization that those who hold to a cataclysmic paradigm are themselves falling prey to the same problems of their opponent. So what am I talking about? Well, Uniformitarianism is the prevailing orthodoxy. Everything in current science is built around the idea of uniformitarianism, meaning that the present is the key to the past. It's a geologic doctrine, but this doctrine extends all the way into quantum mechanics. It extends all the way into astrophysics. It extends all the way into any form of science that seeks to give us an origin story. And the assumption is always the same, that if I go outside today, or if I go outside 1,000 years from now or 1,000 years ago, that my environment will be uniform. And so as a result, with that doctrine in mind, then anytime that I want to create a geological structure, like a canyon or a basin or a mesa, I need to have hundreds of millions of years to do it, because clearly we don't see this kind of gross erosion or uplifting take place today in any way, shape, or form. So that is the core then. That is the actual framework that this document is currently cast into. The problem is that those who are cataclysmic paradigm holders, the vast majority of them are not mythologists. So their assumption is that when they look into the sky, that no matter what, there have been cataclysms, but if they go back and they decide that there was a micronova at some point, and seek evidence to support that, which there's evidence to support that the sun or a sun or our environment in general has endured one or more micronova bursts from a star, the assumption is always that it's this star, that the solar system has always looked like it does. And no one actually is ever discussing the implication of our mythological narrative leading us from a polytheistic structure, which is descriptive of multiple stars, multiple luminary bodies, working in concert with each other, or perhaps in competition with each other, in order to latch onto the prevailing currents, the Birkeland currents which exist within the domain of space that we're passing through, that these luminaries are discussed in detail in every mythology around the world, and that the reason why we shifted from a polytheistic structure to monotheism is because when we looked up after our Ragnarok, after the great Holocaust, after the great disruption, the massive upheaval that took place anywhere between 4,000 and 6,000 years ago, that this upheaval reorientated everything for us, and that the emergence of various religions are in an effort to be descriptive of the current state or frame of reference that people were enjoying at that time. So as the gods lost their power and receded, literally, quite literally, the old gods were being replaced by the new god. And that then was reflected in religious orthodoxy. Well, that idea, all of that is lost on most of your cataclysmic folks, because they don't have an understanding of that mythological narrative as a resource from which to draw, so they could say, well, then our current fear for an upcoming cataclysm may be unfounded. It may be unfounded because the system itself has reconciled, so that what we see now is what we are going to get unless another body enters the system carrying with it its own electromagnetic charge that might be disruptive to or add upon the current charged state of our environment. Like, that's the thing to worry about, and that's completely unpredictable at present, because it's really hard to see these dark bodies as they're moving through space at great distance. So that's the thing I wanted to cover. I wanted to just bring out the point that this document rests within a framework of two paradigms which are mutually exclusive, absolutely mutually exclusive, so that you have your folks on one side of the table, which is the vast majority of scientists out there. Anyone who, for instance, is subscribing to the projected half-life of any isotope or radioactive material over the course of tens of thousands of years is assuming uniformitarian environs to be in existence now and then, and that there's nothing that might disrupt the ordinary rate of decay within these isotopes or materials. That's just one thing. So if you're calculating your dates based on that paradigm, on a uniformitarian paradigm, then your dates might be wrong, that things might be considerably younger than you think, or maybe considerably older than you think, depending upon how the charged state may have infected those isotopes, those materials over time. None of that really can be known because we don't have the ability for us to detect what it was like other than to speculate at this point. But ultimately, I suppose what I'm trying to say is that I would assure you that the likelihood of our solar system being disrupted and us moving into another period of cataclysm is considerably less likely at the hands of our star or some asteroid or any number of other events that we're constantly being fed to fear, and considerably more likely that we're just going to despoil the planet for ourselves with toxins and just, wipe up things that way. That's way far more likely that that's the case than we need to worry about some micronova event, even though it's really, really popular right now to do that, to just frighten people with the stuff that really the degree of preparation that one could take, let's say in a pole flip event, right? The degree of preparation that one person can take in a pole flip event is minimal, really. Because if the magnetic shield of our planet diminishes, let's say 20-30%, which is what would be predicted in a pole flip, then anyone living on the surface, the direct surface of the planet, would have catastrophic injury as a result of solar radiation. So, I just wanted to throw my 2 cents in with regard to this, and just remember also the source from which this comes. It is the CIA. They are known for moving the consciousness of large groups of people in particular directions for ends which are known only to them. But definitely, when I see a document that is 2-3 times larger, or at least that's what we're told, was larger, and of course I guess it was reprinted in '98 somehow or another. They reprinted it without it being sanitized. Like, the whole thing's really hinky to me. So I would take it with a grain of salt. I definitely would take any Naga translations of the first 3 chapters of the Old Testament with a really, really, really ginormous grain of salt, because it just, all of it just felt a little weird, a little hinky. The coordination of mythologies, it left me with the impression that this was kind of a work. So, and that's a wrestling term, a work. It means that, that we're being played, at least to one degree or another. I'm not sure why or what the purpose is, but definitely it's more important that the dialogue is maintained, that we talk about the bigger picture, that science today is held hostage under the yoke of uniformitarianism, in spite of the fact that we have ample narrative evidence as well as geologic evidence that can be seen as cataclysmic. All right, well, that's it. I'm done for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the Modern Alchemist podcast. From going forward, I definitely want to say that what's on the map? Everything's on the map. There's a whole wide world out there, and I'm ready to just kind of give you my insights and point you in the directions that I'm looking. When I see all this distraction being thrown up, I'm thinking to myself, what are the bigger issues here? And then I move from that point forward. All right, I hope everyone here has a wonderful day. I'll be talking to you soon. This program has been brought to you thanks to the generous contributions of our patrons on Patreon. Your patronage is greatly appreciated. And for more content like this, be sure to check out the Modern Alchemist channel on Patreon.